Hello, quality improvement class. I'm Katie Harrington, and I'm going to try to present pretty quickly about my QI project. But before that, I would just like to say it's been pretty cool getting to see everybody post their videos over the last week and a half. It's nice being able to put a face with a name and actually hear everybody's voices and get to know you just a little bit better, I guess, than what we've been interacting on Blackboard. Another advantage of going on the second week is that I get to see everybody's videos and kind of decide how I want to format things myself. So hopefully this isn't too bad. There have been some pretty awesome videos so far, and hopefully I can at least hold myself up to that standard just a little bit. To give you a quick background on Dot Foods, we are a family-owned operation based out of Mount Sterling, Illinois. They've been in business for about 60 years now. The same family that started it still owns it. The man who started Dot Foods is no longer with us. He passed away in 2008, but his oldest son is now the CEO and in charge of everything. We have 9 different distribution centers across the country, which is pretty cool for a small town. Started out of the back of a station wagon company. The location that I work out of has over 900 warehouse employees in our frozen, dry, and cooler warehouses. And we are open 24/7 except for some holidays like Christmas and 4th of July, just for some examples. We provide health services 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, for day and night shift. And we are on call 24/7 for weekends, and then anytime after, probably about midnight until 6 a.m. That's when we're on call. To give you an idea of our staff, we have our director is a registered nurse. We have another registered nurse on site who runs our clinic. There's 2 athletic trainers and 2 wellness coaches. We rotate on what nights we cover. So some days I work 8 to 5, some days I work from 1 until 11 or midnight. It just kind of depends. We try to rotate the nights so you're not stuck working every Friday. That's about it for just our general summary. One thing that's been pretty interesting since I've started is the changes that have happened at DOT. Before myself and our other ATC started, they never had anybody on site that could do evaluation and treatment in-house. So that was a really big change for DOT after hiring us. And it's kind of been a slow process getting some of the things that we want, but at the same time it's been pretty rewarding because we're not just working with people for 4 years of high school or 4 years of college. We're working with people as long as they decide to have a career at DOT. So it can be anywhere from 6 months to 20 years. We have 25-year employees out on the warehouse floor. So it's pretty cool because you're not just spending, a 4-year time gap. You're spending possibly, part of somebody's lifetime with them and getting to know them and knowing their family and their kids. And it feels like there's a lot of involvement in it, which is, for me, very satisfying from a personal standpoint. My QI project kind of stemmed from the lack of coverage we have on the weekends and on nights. Like I said, I'm on call 24/7, but I'm like every other human. I sleep, and I spend time with family on the weekends. I go on vacations. We can't always be available all the time. So, there's times where we have an employee that gets injured over the weekend, and they aren't given access to anybody for 3-4 days, depending on what their work schedule is, and the next time we have somebody on site qualified to evaluate. So that's kind of where my QI project stemmed from. Throughout the last 10 weeks, it's been interesting seeing how things progress and learning about how the QI process is developed. So I'm not going to repeat a whole lot from my paper because I'm sure you'll read that and you don't need to hear me talk about it as well. But the big things that we will try to implement in this process, there's going to be 3 or 4 different interventions that we've kind of discussed throughout this time period. The first one would be trying to get somebody here within a 24-hour time period after an injury occurs. The quicker we can get somebody on site to evaluate, the less likely they are to run off to another provider, the less likely they are to be taken off of work, which doesn't affect them as much personally. We can do a lot for job modification on site if we know what we're dealing with. So that's where some of that stems from. Another aspect of it is, we were hired to help reduce work comp dollars. So the more we can do in-house, the cheaper it is for DOT overall. Obviously, patient care always comes first. If it's an emergency or if somebody needs to see a physician, they're going to see a physician. But for those, those less severe injuries or things that we can work somebody through, we're going to try to see them on site as quickly as we can. So like I said, the first intervention that we would try through the PDSA cycle is having somebody do a follow-up within a 24-hour time period after the injury occurs. The biggest issues I see with that are that our health team is kind of spread out. It's a very rural area. I'm the closest one. I live in town. And then our registered nurse lives about 20 miles away. And then our next ATC is 40 minutes away in Quincy. So the chances of getting him to come on site are probably pretty slim, because asking him to drive 40 miles in to evaluate somebody and then leave an hour later, that's a lot to ask from somebody, especially on a Saturday when they had plans. So I think that would be a good first cycle, but I don't see the success of it being as high as initially I thought it would be. The second PDSA cycle that we thought about was having people rotate on weekends. So either we have coverage on site or we have somebody on call. It could be one or the other. If you're on call that weekend, then you would be expected to come on site if something required an evaluation. Once again, like I said, I'm the closest person, so if our other ATC is going to dedicate time to come in on the weekends, it may just be the best for him to have training room hours. And I think in the long run, that's going to be where we end up, is having time on the weekends where we're open. Our training room is open from 3 to 8 on Saturday and Sunday, and then you rotate on who works those weekends. I can see some conflict with that, because part of the perks of our job is not having to work weekends. So trying to give that up could be interesting. But I think as we expand our staff, our availability to provide more coverage is going to be a lot better. From a STEEP standpoint, I think that this project is going to help address an equitable issue that we have. Our day shift employees during the week get way more access to healthcare providers. And if you're looking at that from an equitable standpoint, that's not fair compared to our night shift and weekends. So that's one thing that we'll be addressing with this project. Another thing would be improving patient-centered care. Obviously, if they don't get treated for 3 to 4 days, things could get drastically worse. They could run off, and that could affect them personally because they're taken off of work by a physician that doesn't understand the job duties or the options. And we would like to prevent that as much as possible, because we don't want our people to be missing a paycheck. We don't want to affect their lives personally, and we obviously want them to be successful when they're here. And another aspect of it is being effective. If we have healthcare providers that can treat and evaluate, we want to be able to do that for them on a regular basis. We don't want to not provide that opportunity just because they work a weekend or just because they work a full night shift. So those are kind of the 3 things that I see as being the key principles that we would be addressing with this project. And hopefully through the PDSA cycles and the intervention trials, we can figure out what's just going to be the most appropriate. I'm hoping as we expand staff and as we expand our understanding of what we have to offer and what more we can offer with the current staff that we have, that we'll be able to provide weekend coverage soon on a regular basis. So that's all I have on my QI project. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all the suggestions and support you've given throughout the year. I've only been certified for about 2 years now. So it's pretty awesome to get advice and support from people with a vast amount of experience and a whole variety of experiences from high school to college and another industrial athletic trainer, which is pretty cool. So thank you for a great first 10 weeks, and I look forward to our next block of classes together.